gut wrenching.
Wait.
How do you, I mean, that's personal, but like, how do you respond to that?
I sat there and listened to her, to be honest. Like, she really, I mean, it had been fresh. It just happened last week, you know? And she hadn't even gotten his ashes back. She had his body cremated. And she just needed somebody to talk to. So she told me the whole story. She told me everything she tried to do. And then she told me her thoughts on his faith and his spirituality, and that she thought he was in heaven with Jesus, and that he was whole now. And that all the decisions that he had made had been because addiction took his life. And yeah, it was awful. I mean, there's no way you can tie that up in a pretty little bow, you know. And there's nothing that I could offer her at the end of that conversation that would make the situation better. And I know that, and she knows that. So there's no reason to try to be like, well, have you thought about it from this perspective? What about this? Does that make you feel better? No, she didn't need that, you know. When she literally looked at me at the end and goes, thanks for just listening to me. You didn't have to do that. That's what I'm here for. That's my job. I mean, not, that's my job. That's what I do. But it is. And to a certain extent, an objective listener to someone's pain is what they need. And to not offer things like, why didn't you try to do that to him when he was starting down this path?
So they couldn't, was he beaten or something that they couldn't identify his body?
He just
Like,
didn't have any wallet, he didn't have any ID. No
okay,
ID.
I was just like, I thought maybe he was like,
Yeah, no, he didn't have his phone with him, he didn't have anything, and they had him in the hospital ER as a John Doe. So,
Cool.
yeah. Yeah. So, I think people will choose to make decisions that you don't like. Today, a woman trying to get her counseling for her depression. She's telling me she's so angry, sometimes she thinks she wants to hurt her kid. You know?
Oh, no.
She's like, everything she says, she's like breaking up the notches of how concerned I am, you know?
Oh my.
And then I have an option, I have resources for her to go for counseling. And I thought, and I said, can I make that appointment for you right now? Can we just do it right now? We'll do it together. I'll call, we can make the appointment for you. No, I don't want to. I'm gonna take this home, I'll talk to my husband about it and make a decision.
It,
Okay.
Go on.
don't you have to report it if there is harm that she's potentially going to harm her kids? Like, don't you have to report that though?
Potentially, if she has means by which to harm them that she's telling me that she's going to. She's not. She doesn't have a plan. She has no intent. If she told me, I'm at home every night and I'm smacking her upside the head and I can't stand it, I'm going to strangle him tomorrow, then absolutely, on my word, in a heartbeat.
But you wouldn't report it even though she says, I'm so mad that I want to hit Megan. Oh, for me, I would think, report that.
No, it's the same people that say like, I'm so mad at Gabrielle that tomorrow I'm gonna punch her in the face. Like, I'm not gonna report that, you know? I didn't say I was gonna kill you. Now, if I said, I have a gun in my back pocket, and tomorrow when she comes into class, you better just wait, I'm gonna kill her.
Oh, well.
Absolutely, it wouldn't, you know?
At my internship, there's a questionnaire that we have to fill out for people that have any kind of mental illness, whether it's depression or anxiety or something more severe. And it asks, like, one of the questions is, do they want to harm someone? And then, like, it's no, yes, but no plan, and then yes, but a plan.
Yeah.
And then after that, it asks, like, do they have a weapon or something? And it gives options. Yeah, I mean, so it's like if you answer yes to either of those, you have to show that there's like a box that says like, if checked yes, how did you address this? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's complicated. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had like all these thoughts going on in my head, like, okay, what am I going to do? If she says this, what am I going to do? If she says this, I guess I could call DCS, but what am I going to tell them? She's really mad. And they're going to say, seriously, you're calling DCS because you got a mad mom? That's not reportable. But all that to say, you can't force somebody to do something that they don't want to do. Does that? It's not very fun to hear.
Oh my gosh. That was such a Bible thing.
Because at one point she also says something about like, something to the effect that we just pray about it and, you know, commit it to God and you'll get better. And I was What would you have done differently if you were Lois? Like, honest. What would you have done?
That's the wife.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Why?
Just because it would have gotten to be too much and you know, nothing was changing. I couldn't even make money because he was spending it on alcohol. Like I could provide for myself or him.
Show that maybe someone.
Yeah, that was the worst.
I understand her staying through it because I think that she wanted to please her family, like the whole vows of like death do us part kind of things. I think that's why she stayed in it so much because she like vowed towards it. But I see like, I totally understand your point too, like wanting to leave. I think that's like why she stayed so much and like was like feeding him with the Bible. 'Cause she, like, I think even one point in the movie she said like I said these vows. I don't remember. Maybe I'm making it up. Like said we said vows or something. But it made me angry like when he walked away twice. Like when she had that, I was like, no, don't do this again. Don't do it again.
When she was losing the baby and he wasn't there and he
Oh my
was
gosh.
hospital now.
That was terrifying.
I would have had him admitted.
Hmm?
I think she waited way too long to have him admitted. Like after the second time, I bet looked out like you got one more time, and then you're going. Like, I just felt like she was, and it was at the end when she started yelling about like, why was my love not enough for you, and like why was my like married, why was just married, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this guy has an addiction, like your love really can't work, like it's not a magical chance of love, but it can work. And I mean that's really my thought process. I'm like it's not like a he has a problem, and your love is only going to support him. It's not going to do it anymore. I was really annoyed by that.
It's like this too. Did you find yourself annoyed, frustrated, angry, or were you feeling lots of compassion for him?
I mean, I felt compassionate towards him, like at some points, especially when he was like at his lowest, and it was just like a really sad state. But I mean, I was frustrated with him for the most part, like you know when he, you know, the fact that it just like controlled him so much that like he like left her on the side of the road, and she had to go find him, and that happened like multiple times, like he left her in the car or whatever, you know, while he went like had a drink, and it just like controlled him to the point where he couldn't even be considerate enough to say, at least say to her, like, oh, well, wait, I'm not coming back anytime soon. I'm gonna go get a drink, so like, you can come with me or you can go do whatever. But he just like was so like ruled by it like moment to moment. There was no like forward thinking at all beyond his next drink.
I think. Go ahead. I think the point, especially when he was hallucinating in the bedroom, like definitely got me. Like how much it so controlled him that like she had to like be like, I'm your wife, it's okay. Like just that illustration of like, wow, it's gone so far, and just continuous. But it's crazy. It made me think like, oh, do I see people now like that are potentially gonna become alcoholics? Like it just made my wheel turning. And I was like, I shouldn't say anything to anyone now.
Alcohol detox is incredibly dangerous. People die. So when they showed him in those, not handcuffs, the restraints in the bed, and then they discharged him home, and he's still hallucinating, and it's very frightening that he didn't die.
Is it dangerous for like the person's body or for people
Yes.
around him?
No,
Oh,
the
okay.
person's body. Yeah.
Because it has so much alcohol intolerance. I actually had a patient who's an alcoholic, and he almost died while in a skilled nursing facility because he couldn't get a drink. Like he is a heroin and alcoholic and has liver damage from it, and he almost died in it because he's like, I need to, like he's shaking and couldn't get up, and I was like, kind of was like almost like, can he have one drink? But at the same time, I was like, he can't because he's here, but it's not good for his body. But yeah.
When you're in detox, there's medicines that they give you to control those symptoms, but that's why you don't detox from alcohol apart from a medical facility. Like it's a controlled detox as opposed to other things that it's not.
I have patients that I see go through detox, and they're like, I mean, some of the symptoms are like increased heart rate, like their heart rate is literally going so fast you can't even imagine. They're like just completely out of it, and it's a scary thing to watch. And a lot of people I've noticed will check themselves, like they'll do something that'll be like minor, like have a cold or something, they'll check themselves into a hospital so they can detox in a safe facility, but they don't have to go into like a treatment facility. There's a lot of people at my internship that will do that. Once we start talking to them, they're like, oh, they're trying to detox here.
Is that the same for narcotics?
I think there's different mechanisms for detox for different substances, and I don't know enough about it to tell you. I just know we had a patient who died from overuse of alcohol, and we thought what she was trying to do was just stop on her own, and then they found her dead in her house.
How bad does like the alcoholism have to get to require a detox? Like how does the brain just
You can
Those
detox
are
it.
great questions. I'm so sorry. I don't know.
Well, my uncle has gone through 12 steps, and his detox. He was literally 24/7 would drink, 24 ounces. I didn't see him for 8 years, but he has since like come back and been open about like with my cousins who are heavy drinkers and everyone else. And he tried to cold turkeying it and said it literally almost killed him and he had to be hospitalized for that. That's when we reconnected with him. But they like told him at the point, like they said, if you start drinking more than 4 like daily, like 7 days a week, or that you need to start detoxing because so much toxins in your body. So
We have
3
a
is the
screening
limit.
tool that we use at the clinic called ESPER. It stands for Screening, Intervention, and Early Treatment. And there's 2 questions. And for minutes, in the last year, has there been one day where you had 4 or more drinks at one time? And actually, it's 5 or more for men and 4 or more for women. And then there's a tool that we use to read the screening because if they're positive for that, then we give them what's called the audit, which is an alcohol use screening tool, or the DAS, which is a drug screening tool. Last week I brought this to show you when we ran out of time, and then I left them at work. So, but there's measurements for how frequent and how much, because I've had one patient who said, yeah, I drink a beer or 2 every day. And at first I was like, 1 every day. Well, what he was drinking was double the double stacked beers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally not okay because then it was huge numbers. Or we've had lots of patients who say, I don't drink during the week, but I binge drink on the weekend. They won't say binge drink, but that's what they do. I'm like, okay, well, what's that mean to you? Well, just a few. Well, tell me exactly, not just a few. And it turns out it's like 5 or 6. And then it can cause alcoholic hepatitis. I mean, your liver can't process all of that. But once you've gotten into a habit, like we talked about last week, of that craving, intolerance, and withdrawal, right? If you stop and you don't have, well, most people can't stop because they have a craving for more, right? And the next time they drink, it's going to take a little bit more to get the same buzz that they got the last time with 3. So the next time they're going to drink 4. Or the next time, you know what, that beer didn't really do it to me, so I'm going to add some rum to that. That really didn't work either, so I'm going to drink the whole bottle of vodka. So it's adding a little bit more to get the same amount of high, which then doesn't allow for change.
I just wanted to tell a story about one of my patients to like really say that this is like a lifelong process. So this patient, I met with him this week, and we were talking, and he was like, I was told that he was an alcoholic when I went in, and his fiance was with him, and she like kept butting in, like, yeah, you need to fix your drinking and stuff. And she like stepped out, and he's like, part of the reason is because she's driving me crazy. But he told us that he didn't think that this program's worked because he's done a 28-day detox, a 90-day detox, done the 12 steps, all this other stuff. But because he stopped going to the 12-step meetings, he like has gone back to drinking because he has no accountability. But he wasn't having that, so we just had to tell him, like, how about you try and cut back like 1 beer a day instead of cutting it cold turkey, because we don't want him to end up, dead. Like, But
I've done
it's-
that with patients too.
yeah.
Like, okay, let's replace one of those beers with a Gatorade. Can you do that? Hey, that's a pretty good idea. I think I might could do that. Okay, let's try it. You try it. Come back and tell me how it went. You know, and then we can replace another one. Because I hate 12-step groups and I hate anything. I hear that all the time. So you need to know that just because you think something is a really good recommendation for treatment, and you learned a lot when you went to the group because you're not an alcoholic, and you try to tell someone else, hey, you should go to 12 steps. They're super awesome. They'll bring you so much fun there. You may get pushback, and that's okay. Because not everybody likes other people's recommendations for treatment. And that's, I have a patient specifically that I've tried to give him stuff about 12 steps twice. He's like, I'm not going to go. And I know the reason why he's not going to go. Because he doesn't want to quit. That's the truth. He really doesn't.
That's what a
wanna
lot
quit.
of them.
They have to
So
have the
why would
will.
I go to 12 steps? That's
Is it stepping your line, or stepping over the line to offer to go with them?
yes. Don't
Yes.
do that.
Okay.
Don't do that.
It's
And you
professional
take
versus
responsibility, like what Kristen said. This is my issue that I need to work on, and you don't need to get into that.
that's crossing personal versus professional too.
Lastly, what do you think, watching the movie, any thoughts on how it might impact your practice in the future? Your work with clients or friends if you're not gonna be a social worker? Yeah.
I think we should ask the spouse how they feel because Lois, she was clearly like upset about them not taking part in her love. So I would suggest making sure the spouses are okay and not feeling left out because they go through it also.
And you know, Bill was not an angry, violent drunk, but it's very possible that a lot of these homes will include domestic violence or child abuse. And so you gotta be careful about that too. Making sure you ask.
I liked how at the end Lois made her own support group. I thought that was really helpful because it's not just, it doesn't affect, like how your friend was saying, like it doesn't affect just you, it also affects your family as well.
So he's forming an AA, Matt and her forming an Al-Anon, it's beautiful. Okay.
Oh, is that real?
Yeah.
Is that how it happened?
Yeah.
Wait, so that's actually how the whole thing, okay, that's what I was thinking, but I wasn't entirely sure.
That's cool.
That's why I was a little sad I didn't get to debrief with y'all after class, because that's what, in the article that you read about the 12, like, from the book, the big book, which is what Bill Wilson wrote, which got published, that's the whole point.
So that is the book that they were reading at the meeting?
Yeah.
Is that? Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
That he was writing and he said, oh, we can use this money to help pay for our life because I'm not working, and it's the big book, and y'all were reading the introduction for class last week, that gave his story.
Okay.
We didn't talk about his story because I knew you were gonna watch it.
Got it.
That's what that is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
one of the leaders actually had me like read, like each time they read like a different section from the book, and then so like I read some like introduction part, and then just some people telling about their story. This other guy who was an alcoholic, like used different parts of the book. He would like read a passage and say how that affected his life and his journey, and I thought that was really encouraging.
It is, absolutely. They did the same thing at one of the meetings I went to. The whole room just passed around different parts. You read this and then we'll talk about what it means and how it impacts us, so absolutely. So we're gonna talk about the Breathing Underwater, Richard Rohr article that I had you guys read. And I know that you guys wanted hands-on activities. I did not plan any hands-on activities tonight because Kristen was coming and she is an activity. Next week, we're gonna do some role plays. So just know that I am listening to you. We are gonna do some hands-on activities, but tonight we're not gonna do any role plays. So, before I transition, I wanna make sure, did y'all have any other questions about what Kristen had to say or anything troubled you or you weren't sure?
I have a question on meetings, the 12-step meetings in general. Like, is it always, because it just seemed like the ones that I went to, like they were kind of in, like some seemed like they were in the beginning stage. Like, how do you know 1, 2, 3? Like, do you do the 12 steps on the side, or so it's just like a community of a group? Like, I'm a little confused on that part.
I believe, bless you, you start work them with your sponsor.
Okay, that's what
So
I
you
like.
would have
Was what
accountability and somebody making sure, and then everybody's in a different stage when they're working them, and you don't stand
Okay.
up and be like, this week I'm on step 2, and this week I'm on, nobody does that.
Okay, that's why I was a little confused on. I was like, okay, how is this if we're going to discuss? That makes more sense now.
To be a sponsor, are they all like past graduates of the 12-step program, or are you going to be?
I don't know. I know she's told me
That
that
was-
her sponsor is quite a ways further in
That
her-
was my question as well,
in
because
her treatment.
at one of the meetings I went to, one of the people said something that made me believe that they had gone through and graduated with the program, and then talked about their sponsee. So I was like,
So the meeting that I went to, there was a clipboard that got passed around, and if you wanted to sign in, you could write your name, and then you could write if you wanted a sponsor. And then the clipboard went around the room all the meeting, and if you wanted to be a sponsor, you would look for the people who were asking to have one. I guess if you felt like in your recovery you were in a place where you could do that. And so then you would write down that person. I saw people getting out little cards and they were going to write down people's names to call. So I know Kristen has a sponsor and she has a sponsee. I don't know at what point she decided she was ready to take on a sponsee, but I think that's been recent. But I know, like she said, it's an everyday thing. So if you're not in a place where you can handle hearing other people's struggles, and it might turn you back into your own relapse, then you don't want to be somebody's sponsor. Any other questions about Kristen? Thoughts about 12 steps? All right. So I'm gonna, let's see. 2, 4, 2, 2, 2. You guys know I can't count. 2, 2, 2, 3, 2. Is that okay?
Wait.
And what I've done is I have,
us three.
yeah, I've made some questions. And what I tried to do was
Charlotte.
allow this to be a time when you answer the questions based on the article that I hope you read, and also your experience at your 12-step meetings, so that you're processing that with somebody else at the same time you're answering these questions. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes to talk about it together. And hi, Melinda. If Mackenzie, if you'll read your questions out loud so she can hear them, because I didn't send them.
Do you want me to just screen? I can just take a picture of it and send it.
That's much
I'll do that. Hey, Melinda, here's the questions. You can pause the video. Yeah, it is a video. Pause the video. Here's the questions we're about to ask. So, these are the questions, so pause it. Okay. So, Melinda, you are in our group. It's Mary Grace, me, and Penny. So, question 1. If anyone in your group attended Al-Anon meeting, share about. Can we go in the hall?
That's so much work.
Well, it's gonna pick up everyone's thing. Okay, we'll just have to shout really close into it. Al-Anon meeting. Share about your experience and match it with the, or differ from who's reading? What Rowan talks about the Reed myth and the sanctuary. Okay. Did you guys go to Al-Anon meeting? Did you go?
I went to an Al-Anon meeting.
Okay, Mary Grace, you talk on it.
I'm trying to remember what I read this like earlier this week. Do you have the article pulled up?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what exactly he says about the myth of sacrifice.
Page 21.
21 numbers.
21 to 24.
Right here.
I'm gonna pause it while you. Reason.
So talking about like the myth of sacrifice and codependency, like there were a few people in our meeting that, or in my meeting, that talked about that they wanted to be like
I had made copies for everybody.
almost be like the hero of their what are they called?
Addictions?
Nope. Qualifier. It's called qualifier for the person that like allows them to come to the meeting. So like some of them it's their children or whatever. So they talked about that they wanted they tried so hard to, like, one of them said fix their child. But there came to be a point where they had to cut them off because it was more they were enabling them than helping them in any way. If that makes sense. And it ends up being, it's not healthy for the qualifier or the person that is the, like, Al-Anon member. It's not healthy for either one of them. Yeah, that's what I have for that.
So, too, if in the meeting that you attended, how did the group members talk about God on their understanding? Compare your experience with. Honestly, with mine, everyone was just kind of talking about their week. Like, no one honestly talked about God. There was one person like, I went to church today, and like, honestly, none of my things. Like, one of them, we literally just sat in silence for a while. Like, we did some. It was for overeaters, and someone like got really emotional in it, and then like we kind of just were like really quiet for a while. That was probably good, like 15 minutes. There was just silence in the room, which I felt really awkward about. But then I remember like Rachel saying like silence is the best thing.
Yeah, a lot of work happens in the silence.
Yeah,
which
like,
you'll learn later on in all your classes.
Yeah, later on. Silence is like the best thing ever.
Like it may be the most awkward, but one of our professors talks about that, like, some of her clients, she will just sit in silence for an hour with them.
And just
because
be like,
they
hey,
don't
you okay
wanna,
over there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done. And so it really does, like, if it's furthering the work, then, like, it's okay to be in silent. So that's what, so I think, like, maybe that's their understanding of their stuff, and, like, that they were seeing God in it, because the lady was like, some people looked like they were praying in it, the sense of it, like that quiet time, like they were waiting. Like at first, it was really awkward the first minute. Like everyone was like, "Who's gonna talk next?" Like, and I like the facilitator really didn't facilitate it, so they must have been like, "You know what? We're gonna have silence here. Maybe she didn't. I don't know."
In my Al-Anon meeting, the facilitator wasn't like really the facilitator. It was more like
she just like opened it. She like opened the discussion, but then after that, I was like, "Okay, you're gonna say something," but she didn't.
In my meetings, it was interesting. So in AA, they all talked about, or like most of the members talked about their higher power. They never mentioned God. In my Al-Anon meeting, they never mentioned a higher power. They always just mentioned him by God. Which, like, the meeting was at a church, so I wonder if that played any role.
Yeah, my one that they really talk about God is like a missionary, like Black Baptist church on Jefferson Street. So that was really the one that really...
This was at like Christ the King, so it was like.
Okay, yes, it's probably.
And then in my NA, it was weird because there were a few people that said something about God, and then they corrected themselves to higher power. They were like, God, I mean higher power. So I'm like, is there some kind of rule that you're not supposed to say God? Or something? I mean, no one really thought it. It didn't seem like anyone like was getting offended by the whole God, but it was interesting that like there were two different people that did it. They corrected themselves to say, I mean higher power. I was like,
Okay, 3.
And hopefully grow from them. How do you see this play out as you went to the 12-step meetings?
People were just sharing their personal lives and being honest about like their struggles with their OAAA. I think I went to 2 AAs. I can't remember. I read it a while ago. That they're just like, this is my struggle. And like acknowledging it, they really grew from it. Because like the first thing of any kind of step is like admission.
Yeah, when you make yourself vulnerable, you have to like kind of force yourself to be vulnerable.
Well, and I think part of the 12 steps is like saying that you're not perfect and admitting to the other people in the group. Because I think it's so easy for us to like want to be perfect. And like I think social media like encourages that. Like you only put one side of yourself. Like I'm not gonna put, I just had some people do put, I had the worst day, but like most people say like I just had the best day and I look perfect and
everything. Like
no one's gonna put a picture of themselves when they look like
they're crying
literally death. So
I've done that one time.
Well, it's
Well,
me.
it was for marketing choice, but yeah.
So I think like having to admit that you're not perfect is so key in the 12 steps.
And I think that's a whole society thing, like you were saying, like everyone wants to be perfect, like the thing that movie covers. And I think that really played a big effect when I went to my OA meeting. Because there was a lot of people that were like super skinny, and like one was a former model, and she's like, I'm so skinny, blah, blah, blah. Like I couldn't understand her really because she had some thick accent. I think she was foreign of some kind. Super tall, like 6'2" maybe. I was like, dang girl. She was tall.
They're not.
And like really skinny.
They're not in the house. Very honored.
She's actually skinny. But she like was saying how
Even
like she was admitting to her mistakes and like that she, especially like in the industry, it kind of like propelled her to make all these mistakes, even though like she knew it wasn't the best thing. So like that going off like her limitation, like to really get out of it, like it was her career choice that she did this, and that like it kind of propelled her to keep continuing being anorexic.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like that stuff's kind of like forced like body image and stuff in like the modeling community and like the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Body image is like the epitome of
It is.
success.
Honestly, like I know people who are like super good, but it's honestly their image that like gets them a deal or not. Like it is such a thing. Like we're just gonna put your voice, like someone else's voice, over top of your voice.
And kind of going along with like the transparency is that a lot of people, in particularly the NA and AA meetings, talked about that like these groups are the reason they don't use is that because they're not scared, but they're like they don't want to have to come into a meeting and be like, I messed up. But saying like, but the way that they talked about it is like if they were to have come into a meeting, they would have said like, yeah, I used the other day.
Yeah.
Or, and there was a member in the NA meeting that was like, yeah, like, I can't even say like I'm 24 hours clean and all this other stuff, and he was like, that hurts like having to come in here and say that. Yeah. I mean, maybe not those exact words, but it was similar.
Yeah.
It was like it's not easy to. And
Like I'm surprised he showed up and
yeah.
you know, it probably really furthered the work with everyone else around him because what was I saying? That it really was furthering the work. Done.
Yeah.
I was
In my AA meeting, one of the guys was talking about, he was like, I just don't think I can do it. But then he was talking about that at the last meeting he came to, he picked up a desire chip, like a desire to quit. And he said that kept like, he was like, I put it in my pocket and I kept just thinking about it, even though
Wait, what?
a desire chip, you want to like, did you do chips in your meetings?
No.
Okay. So
No.
in some of the AA and NA meetings, they do chips or keychains to signify like big milestones and birthdays. There's like a 24-hour one, a 1 month one, 3 months, 6 months, all this stuff.
Oh.
And one of them is a desire chip saying like, you don't have to be clean, but you have a desire to want to be clean.
Yeah.
So this guy was talking about that, like that chip, because he had committed to all these other people that like, I'm going to try, that helped him so much.
Okay.
Number 4?
Number 4. Writes about good therapists will let you know that you cannot heal what you. So that just kind of goes like to admitting your control and like willing to surrender control and know that there's a higher. Like it all just like goes off.
I feel like we've already kind of touched on it.
Yeah, like all day.
We did. Okay, 5. God does not love us if we
Change, God loves us.
But we can change. Only love affects true energy is from my changes. Sorry. How do you feel about that? The kind of first sentence is like, God does not love us if we change.
I think what
That
it,
kinda just-
I think what he was getting at was that
That just like,
like you have to be your true self, and if we try and change and be someone that we're not, that he like
he's
not
still
that he
gonna love
doesn't
us.
not that he doesn't love us, but that he doesn't love that we're trying to be someone we're not.
Yeah, we can interpret that.
I think that's
hope
I
hope
interpret
that's how
it.
he's interpreting
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd be like, dude, don't say that.
How do you
Love
think
is-
this applies?
Love
to
is not love unless it is totally free. Ooh. Grace is not grace unless it's totally free.
I think that
How do y'all feel about that?
well,
Love is not love
how
unless
it.
it's totally free.
So the question is, how do you think it applies to people with addiction?
Because you gotta
And
be
I
able to
think
love
that-
yourself and be free of your addiction. Like, you
And
have to
also knowing that grace doesn't cost you something, like
love yourself.
like it may.
Knowing you don't have to give anything
Uh-huh.
to
What is that song?
get it on. What does that say?
I don't know
Like
what you're
that.
saying.
Um,
Is this on topic? Oh,
maybe you should go and love
love
yourself.
yourself.
What
It's
is that
called "Love
song?
Yourself"
Um,
by the Jonas Brothers. I mean, not Jonas Brothers, Justin Bieber.
Sure, that song. That's like what I'm coming to my head. Like, you should
Okay.
love yourself. Love
Well, are
yourself, Melinda. Oh wait, I just put pen in my
When you were attending your 12-step meetings, what
Number
evidence
6.
did you see? I'm not reading or anything. When you were attending your 12-step meetings, what evidence did you see of this quote? What humanity needs is an honest exposure to the truth and true accountability and responsibility for what has happened. I kind of feel like we already touched on that like a lot. That like this group is like the power of the group is that there's an accountability, and even if there's like even new people are like, are you like, how are you doing today? There were people that came up to me like, how are you doing today?
I said honestly,
and-
like one of them, I went, I am not well. I was honest with them.
And this will just be an opportunity to kind of share that so that you guys can recognize that. Okay, so number 1, if anyone in your group attended an Al-Anon meeting, did anybody in this room? Who went to Al-Anon? Okay, so let's okay. Share how your experience matches or differs from what Moore talks about in the myth of sacrifice and codependency. So, talks about a common way of renouncing self while not really renouncing self at all as being sacrificial. That becomes almost like being a martyr. Usually still all about the person and not really about the other person that you're trying to be sacrificial for. So maybe one of the groups where somebody went to Al-Anon, tell us kind of how you answered that.
I think I kind of shared on this earlier, but there was another woman who, her ex-husband was an alcoholic, and she had recently just completely cut ties with supporting him financially, because that codependency was using for his addiction, and you could kind of see that, like, she saw it, like, the sacrifice hit her first, kind of, like, she knew that that meant no relationship, and even though maybe there wasn't a relationship to really salvage from it, it was still there and it was still comfortable, and so to take that sacrifice to then nip it in the butt, was just what she had to take, but I think it was the sacrifice that she saw first before, like, this is gonna help him,
And I had a lady who talked about, it was like at least one of her children. It might have been one of, like, more than one of her children. It was getting a little confusing, her talking, but she talked about her the codependency was also like enabling her child to continue his or her addiction. I can't remember which one. And that having to cut off was such a sacrifice for her, but it was so good. And she was like, this child was, estranged for a while, and now the child's back in their lives. So it was like a yay to the end of her sacrifice.
If any of you resonated with that codependency kind of thing, guidelines, whether it's drug or alcohol use, doesn't really matter, because it still applies, just like Kristen was sharing. And there's a really good book called Codependent No More. I know you guys don't need a lot of extra reading in life, but
What is it called?
Codependent No More. But it's a good thing to share.
In one of the meetings I went to an Overeaters Anonymous one, so I was very prevalent in what she's talking about. But it was kind of nice because at the first 15 minutes of the meeting, they read from the Alcohol Anonymous handbook, because it applied so much. Like she was saying, it doesn't matter what addiction you have. It was the stories of the 12 steps in the recovery process. So I was interested because at first I was like, am I in the right meeting? I was so confused. Like, am I in the right meeting? But it was the point of just going through the 12 steps and not the addiction, but what the addiction was, but the other people and their lives were the same as the people in that room. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, that's why I was like, wow, that applied so well, because they actually did that in the meeting that I went to. It was just, applying to Alcohol Anonymous when it was an Overeaters meeting. So. Yeah.
Did they acknowledge that?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
after they talked about, then they let everyone else share about those 12 steps, or how it was going. Most of the meetings I went to were a newcomers meeting also, so it's to share just their story and news. But they said let's just go over how the 12 step applies.
Right.
What about question number 2? In the meetings that you attended, how did the group members talk about the God of their understanding, and compared to this on page 26 when he's talking about the same thing?
I talked about in my group that, so in my AA meeting that I went to, they just talked about higher power. They didn't mention God at all. In my Al-Anon, they solely talked about God. Even in the 12 steps, it said God instead of higher power. And I was like, maybe that's because it met at a church. So I was like, maybe. And then in the NA meeting, there were 2 different people that did this. They said God, and then they corrected themselves to higher power. They said I mean higher power. And then I was like, is that an unspoken rule that you don't mention that it's a?
Could be certain meetings.
I don't know. I was like, that's interesting.
How did that resonate with you guys? You walked in thinking about, kind of like we talked about on the first week of class, you walk in with these are your beliefs, and you kind of have to set them aside so that you can listen to what other people say. And even in our room, when we disagree with each other or have different thoughts, you're still just soaking it in, taking it in, but we're not judging each other, we're just listening. How did it feel when you heard people talk in ways that maybe you didn't resonate with, or you did, and you were like, that's great?
It's pretty natural to me because my mother taught us not to assume that everybody was a Christian just because we're supposed to be. But in my NA meeting, a man said that he didn't really believe in God. He said that he was he didn't say it word for word, but he pretty much was saying that he was agnostic. But he said something about the higher power that made him. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Okay, can you tell the story?
So he was basically he basically expressed he didn't really identify with a particular faith or anything. So I guess you said agnostic, but he was saying how when he was going through when he was coming out of going through his process, this higher power was giving him what he needed, giving him the resources and supporting him and things of that nature. So it was kind of this I want to make it clear that I'm not religious, but we were cool for a little bit. That's kind of how I think it was he's we're cool right now, but we're not. This is not a long-term relationship. So it was really
spiritual, but not religious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just it was really interesting because he was and a lot of the men that were like that. They were just saying kind of this higher power is has helped me with this or helped me with that, but then they start talking about crazy and cussing and stuff. Then you're yeah, I just wanted to jump I'm not.
Yeah. Even though it's tough thoughts, I know it felt. Okay, we'll move on. Number 3. are more transparent and many of their blind spots and personality flaws are actually quite easy to love and live with. None of us need or expect perfect people around us, but we want people who can be upfront and honest about the mistakes and limitations and hopefully growth with them. Did y'all see that in your meeting?
Particularly just because that kind of stuck out to me because when I went to see the meetings, like, of course everybody was, figured they had a problem and they needed help, but I didn't get a chance to go to an Al-Anon meeting, but it just kind of, like, I'm there and I'm, like, seeing how strong these people are for being there.